Here.
Counselor Gwaltney. Counselor Allamon.
Here.
Counselor Smith. Here. Welcome back. I missed you. And Counselor Harden.
Here.
So we have Mr. Gwaltney out, one, but you still have a quorum?
All right. Anyone on Zoom? Guess not. I'm looking. Okay.
I would make a motion to approve the minutes as presented by Ms. Salter and dispense with the reading.
For June 7th.
Second.
Okay.
Yes.
Moved by Mrs. Smith, second by Mr. Allamont. Any questions on the minutes? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed by the same sign. That's 4-0. We approve the minutes. Is there anyone in the audience that has an item tonight that's, not in our usual suspects? Okay, we'll start at the top then. 160115, update on past, present, future sidewalk projects. Mr. Smith? How are you tonight?
Good, thank you.
Good.
Hope everybody's well. Happy Father's Day. The update, so we have released Tomahawk Construction for the construction of 10 ADA ramps at Hall Avenue, Hall Kent Elementary School, and Broadway at Shades.
Awesome.
Okay, so those have not been we have not handled those from finance, is that correct? The ADA? Or are you just reporting out?
I'm just reporting that, yes.
Okay, so we do not need to
Take any action.
do anything, okay, so that's just a report on that one.
That's just a
Okay.
report. It is, and so on Hall Avenue, there is an actual ramp because of the way the grades work out. So it's really it's a little bit more sidewalk work. But probably the average is between $3,500 to $4,500 per ramp.
Okay, so for finance tonight, what additional funding do you require?
None.
None, okay. I thought that there was an email about you wanting to move forward on.
Well, that's correct. I wasn't sure that we were going to talk about that here.
I would say it needs to go here because Lancaster, yeah. We don't have a separate, so Lancaster would probably fall under this category.
Okay.
So the request from you for Lancaster,
Would be to, so we have received a civil engineering proposal for topography and civil engineering design services to put together a construction package to be bid because the construction of the project is going to be over $50,000. And the civil engineering fee that was proposed was,
around 4,000, is that right?
it was $24,450.
Okay.
24,450.
I want to make sure that I get the number just right, so give me 1 second.
Got you here. I got you here.
Yeah, I thought the,
24,450.
and that's
24,000.
for overseeing the bid, so civil engineering and topo. So your request tonight for council, for finance rather, is to expend up $24,450 for civil engineering and topo for the Lancaster sidewalks. Is
That's
that-
correct.
Okay. And Mr. Burgett, this will be coming out of our sidewalk line item?
Yes, the sidewalk new construction, we'll need to make budget transfers to cover the full amount since it exceeds what we broke out in the balance.
Okay. Okay, so any questions for Mr. Smith here?
That's Kimley Horn doing that work, is that right?
Yeah, that'd be Kimley Horn, yep.
And Cale, I should have asked you this earlier. Do we know when the Salter is going to be ready to go to bid?
So I haven't heard anything about that project, but 2 weeks ago, I think the report was that it would be ready in 4 to 6 weeks. So I guess I would say it probably 4 weeks. Sure, yep.
Don't agree with her if it's not right.
Well,
ASAP.
yeah,
Okay.
I'm just repeating what I've been told.
Okay, good, good. Okay, perfect. Okay, so that is the only request for tonight in terms of funding for the sidewalks is for Lancaster. So is there a motion to expend that for the engineering?
So moved.
Okay, moved by Mrs. Smith, and that's $24,450 out of sidewalk, new sidewalk line item. Moved by Mrs. Smith, second by Mr. Harden.
So we are gonna amend the budget too, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Capital out of carryover fund balance, is that,
Yes,
Robert, is that carryover fund balance? Okay.
yes, out of carryover.
Is that
fund.
carryover fund balance and capital to amend the budget to sidewalk construction?
Sidewalk construction, Kale, were you gonna transfer that from engineering services to?
I think
to
that-
new sidewalk construction, I believe.
That's right.
Engineering services and capital or general?
Capital.
Okay.
I mean, just out of curiosity, what is the difference there that we're transferring versus what's already in the sidewalk budget that we're,
Come on up, Mr. Burgett. We need you. Let me look in the budget myself.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so what is your recommendation on where this would be coming from?
I don't, my phone's dead, I can't read the email. I believe Kale recommended that he would transfer from engineering services to sidewalk new construction. I'm sorry, I don't have those numbers in front of me. To cover the expense of the engineering and the CNA and one other item you were covering with that.
Okay.
I mean, and I'm just asking the question because if we are pulling extra money to cover these sidewalk costs and then we still have Salter coming up, I'm just trying to figure out at what point do we press pause and just say, for these sidewalks, if we don't have the money in the budget for them.
Yeah, so, okay, so under line item 581751, sidewalks construction, we budgeted,
In this fiscal year, we took the budget down to $100,000 for new sidewalk construction, just because of the shortfalls that we were having and at the mayor's recommendation. And we've always had much more money than that budgeted for new sidewalk construction. And I know that he wants to do this project, and there's engineering involved. And it's my recommendation that we keep it, he could pay for the engineering out of engineering services and the new sidewalk construction out of that money, but we need to keep it under one line item for accounting purposes and reporting it to the auditors as a fixed asset.
Okay.
That's why I'm suggesting that we transfer it. We don't have to, but it would make it much easier from a reporting standpoint.
To keep both the engineering and the construction under one line?
Keep that project under one line item, so we can trace it, because the information that we have to provide, we would have to remember when the auditors come and they start pulling our records, that we have to go over here, look for engineering services, go over here, look for sidewalk, as opposed to just giving them new sidewalk construction invoices.
But
It sounds real simple, but when you're looking at 500 different account
Okay,
lines,
so
it
is
gets
this-
difficult.
is this-
that engineering services, though, isn't that his 01 though? Because I thought the 12 engineering was the done, the paving. So we may have to actually make, you do carry over for capital, because it's an 01.
We could do it as a do from transfer item, but
And I guess I just have some concerns that if we budgeted less and we haven't, and we did experience shortfalls and there is an increased revenues,
is it 0112?
We just need to.
I believe it is budgeted. But if it's not, can somebody tell me, is this item budgeted currently? That what you're requesting for Lancaster within sidewalk construction, do you have the funding for that, or do we need to There's additional money required.
So
That's what I'm asking.
The council has approved that, according to my notes. I don't know when the council approved it, but last year.
Last summer.
Last summer, the council approved up to $50,400 was the estimate at the time for this project.
But that was with internal engineering, correct?
That was with no engineering, I think.
Greg.
It's 24.
Construction costs have gone.
Okay,
Greg
No,
designed.
that's
How about that?
engineering.
He's the engineer.
okay. Okay, here's what we're gonna do. Can we please get together and figure out the best place to take this and carry this over until our next meeting, and then we'll be prepared?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chair?
Okay.
Can I ask a
Yes,
question?
yes, sir.
What's the balance in the sidewalk budget right now?
Approximately $50,400.
Oh, okay. So we would literally just be taking the 24,450 out of engineering services to cover the engineering costs. Is that correct?
Right, but Robert said,
He's
saying do it with
saying
these.
don't do that.
No, that's what he's saying, to do. You're saying to transfer from engineering services to
But
sidewalks.
they were in
and
two
you don't
different
have to
funds,
find-
though, we didn't realize, it
Yeah,
was in Fund 1 and one's in Fund 12.
We could do
so-
a transfer it that way, or if you wanted to keep it in capital, you could just carry over fund balance out of the capital for the engineering of the project.
Mr. President. You look like
Yeah.
you're about to say something.
Yeah, so I feel like we need a little bit of a recap to get everything
Let me
reset.
apologize. My
Okay.
notes are on my phone and my phone is dead, so
No,
I'm
it's okay.
I'm
So-
just lost.
So there were three sidewalk projects that were approved in planning and development.
Yes.
That was Salter and Lancaster, and I believe at the time it was Mecca, if my memory
That's
is
correct.
And so we had those three projects, and we've had some of them on the books approved for a while now. And so I think that what we had was, up until today, was Salter, we've approved the engineering, that's being done. That will be ready for bid probably about the time of budget, so that's probably looking at next year's budget. What's left in this year's budget was enough, based on the original estimate of Lancaster, to cover that.
That's what I had understood.
And there was about $50,000 left, and that was supposed to be about a $50,000 project. Because of changes that have been made on Lancaster in the interim, engineering is now required for that project. Cale has the money for engineering in the engineering line item, but for auditing purposes, it would be easier to move that over to the sidewalk budget that would then use that $50,000 that was there, plus the engineering cost that would come over from the engineering line item. Now, the only other little hitch in this is construction costs have skyrocketed in the interim. So Lancaster may end up costing more than that $50,000 of construction costs as well.
But we'll
So-
have time to do that.
But we'll have
in the
time to
next
do that
budget.
later, so if we
Right.
could just move the money over from engineering to sidewalks so that they can go ahead and get the engineering done, then we can deal with the construction costs later, which may be in this budget year or maybe in next budget year. But that's what that money was left for after the money came out for the ramps.
We'll just have to.
Are you going to be starting construction before this fiscal year's over with?
I don't think we know yet.
Right, we don't know yet.
Okay,
Not
why
until
don't
the
we-
engineering's-
Why don't we use the new construction money that's available to address the engineering, and if it happens before this year, we can address the funding at that point. If not, we address it in next year's budget.
Well, I think what Cale was talking about was that this is the engineering money was for engineering, so to use that for engineering rather than the construction money for engineering seemed to make sense. So I think from my standpoint, and people are free to disagree with me, it would make sense to go ahead and move that. If we need to move it over for auditing purposes, I'm fine with that. But I would rather use the money for what it was budgeted for and use the construction money for what it was budgeted for. And if that leaves the $50,000 in, it has to be carried over for the project after the fiscal year, for the next
Okay.
fiscal year, so be it. But I think for tonight, all we're doing is shifting the money so that they can go ahead and do the engineering.
And I think
We'll just
that,
have to get him 4 accounts, because it's just one is in general fund and one's in capital.
Well, so here's my
So-
question. If it's just the engineering and he's got the money in the engineering line item, why don't we just use the engineering line item to pay for the engineering instead of moving money for anything?
That's what Robert was saying about the
I mean,
construction
you
costs.
can, I mean, you can do that. I was just simply, and we will have to make a note that we have to add those two together when we, add it to our fixed assets and also provide it to the auditors.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking, instead of moving money and changing money and doing, yeah.
So, well, this really is a discussion for another time, but probably, it almost seems to make sense to me to make these into individual line item so that we can include the engineering and the construction in the same one, so that we have a Lancaster item or a Salter item or a whatever, and we, I'm not an accountant, so you tell me if I'm making more problems than I'm solving.
It makes it much easier to
But
track it and follow it as one
if
item.
we could do that maybe going forward in the future, that might make this whole thing easier, where all the money is included in a single line item regardless of what it's being used for, which seems to handle everything.
Well, and also, we were talking to the mayor about adding some engineering services. We've typically not had engineering services within capital. It's just been in 0112 general. We build the stuff out of capital, but we had the done for the paving in 12, so we probably just need to add some more engineering if we just need general engineering as well in 12, so that we're not having to move between funds. But how it started in the history of it just being one construction was way back when Anthony Smith made a motion to move like $1 million from debt, and it's taken us years to get that million done. And so now we were done with that, but we had that whole category of sidewalks, and now we just put 100,000 in this last year.
Sure.
But we could make a project for him, but that's how he had moved $1 million over. You remember that for sidewalks, and it took a long time to get all that, decide what y'all wanted to build.
So, as I see it, there are 3 options at this point. One is,
Yeah.
you just pay it out of engineering. 2, you move it to the sidewalk money and for this project, and then we worry about creating the line items later, or we go ahead and create a separate line item for the Lancaster, and then we gotta move money twice, once from each thing. So, my sense would be not the 3rd yet, because we'll get to that point, and I think that's a little bit more involved than what we want to do tonight. So it would seem to make sense to either, at the committee's pleasure, pay it out of engineering, or to move the money from engineering to sidewalks.
And Mr. President, Chairman, if I can speak just to the 3rd point, is that's what our plan is moving forward, starting with this new budget season, because we are now through with all of the smaller sidewalks that we can take care of without possible engineering or anything else like that, where Mr. Cobb, who was here before, if we had flat land, we can easily do that stuff within, in-house. Now that we have Kale, with the engineering, you'll see the engineering services budget go way down, but we're gonna have to do it by project now versus just having money in sidewalks. We'll still have money in the sidewalk repair budget, things like that, where we have to make repairs or add ramps, things like that, but as far as the actual projects go themselves, engineering, sidewalk, construction fund, all that will be in separate line items based off of what we bring to budget, just to make it easier,
Okay.
as Robert said.
Okay, thank you.
yeah, I mean, I just wanted to make sure that we had the money. If you're saying the money is in engineering, it's gonna be used for engineering, I was just not trying to draw from funds that,
Yeah, no, we have the money. It's just a matter of logistics as
Right.
to how we make.
especially if
this
we have
work.
future projects, but I get that we're coming
Yeah.
on a new budget year
So what is the
anyhow.
pleasure of finance, I guess, to just expend that from engineering? All right, well then, is that your motion?
Reclassify that expense later on, if we have to. Because it's likely that we're not going to make this year anyway, because it's going to exceed the cost, let's just be real. Yeah. what's
Yeah.
that?
Or at least complete it.
Right, and then next year we can, or whenever we have to, we can reclassify that expense, so y'all don't have any issues on the accounting side. 'Cause I do understand your concern there.
Okay,
Is that-
so
Is that a problem?
Is it 24?
You can't reclassify.
24,450, that's correct.
Okay, I would move to expend 24,450 for engineering and topography services for Lancaster sidewalks out of the engineering fund, engineering services fund, line item.
Okay. Moved by Mrs. Smith, second by Mr. Harden.
So we paid out of 112, it's not gonna be budget. So Robert, he's not gonna need a budget amendment now, right?
No,
He's
no
doing it at
budget
112? Yeah.
All right, any other questions, comments? Thank you for the recap. Mr. White. That was very
Can I
helpful.
ask one question?
Sure.
Typically, there wouldn't be any kind of resolution required because of this, but is there any disagreement about that?
There's no disagreement.
No, we're just, this is for a note. Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, by the same sign. Do we have five oh? Okay, well, that one only took.
Smith, and who was the second?
Harden. So that one only took 30 minutes, so we'll be here till 9 tonight. Okay, perfect.
It'll pick up some time on the audit, because they're back in.
Okay, so let's move on. 250417. Request for consideration of 18th Street revitalization project. I don't believe we have anything new on that tonight.
No, we're still working with the post office.
Okay, so we'll carry that over without objection.
Can I ask, President Wyatt, you know, we're under a little bit of a time frame trying to deal with the state and the matching. Do we have a deadline that we're looking at to finally say, hey, this is it, post office?
We can have all the deadlines we want, it's their deadline.
No, I mean, do we have our own self-imposed deadline that we're gonna get in trouble with our matching
Do
issues?
you mean, does the
With the
state have a
state?
deadline?
Yeah,
I'm not aware of one, that
Okay.
they haven't
Okay.
given us one to this point. Now, if they do, we'll deal with that, but to this point, no.
No.
That's not something that's been discussed.
okay, okay.
All right, okay, moving on, 020521, request to hear energy savings presentation from Train for City Hall building. Mr. Squires, you're still
Berkeley?
working on that,
Yeah,
correct?
the, energy services.
Lee Garrett, I'm waiting to hear back. Lee was talking to, we talked to one city and we were waiting to hear back from one other city. So that's all.
Would you be opposed if we tabled this?
No, you go right ahead.
So until we get, okay.
Move to table.
Second.
Okay, moved by Mrs. Smith, second by Mr. Harden, to table this. And we'll bring it up when we get the report back. Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed by the same sign. 5-0 to table. 130521, request to consider audit presentation of 1920 audit and review results of our fiscal policy. Okay, so we have Mr. Burgett, who's going to go over the fiscal policy part, and then Ms. Salter's going to go over the audit portion.
I sent the fiscal policy out to the Finance Committee, and Melody forwarded it to the rest of the council. Some of the new members might not be familiar with it, but this was a policy that was adopted by council in May of 2013, and it gives just some general guidelines of fund balances that the cities to maintain to be in accordance with the fiscal policy that the council created for itself. That's the important thing. These are numbers that the council put in place to maintain fiscal responsibility. Going over the numbers, we start with our current budget, the current year's budget, which is $55,520,000. And we have to reduce our transfers out, which are transfers to Board of Education and transfers to debt service. That leaves us with an operating budget of $42,623,822. Now, we are required to maintain balances in the money we have on file at Raymond James, which is called our rainy day fund, or the balance of 25%. It's a test that we have to pass based on the 9/30 balance. And we do pass the test of having a balance at Raymond James of 25% of this year's current operating budget at 9/30/20. Our current balance there is $11,574,796. So we passed that test. Now, the next test, if you step down, it's the 30% balance on deposit. We do not pass that test. We're slightly under what is required of the 30%. 30% of our current operating budget is $12,787,147. So we're slightly under that. We're $56,685 below what the 30% test is. Based on our fiscal policy, we're required to deposit 25% of our excess of the prior year's budget, which that's going to come to $14,171. So we will come to y'all to do a balance transfer out of our general fund to our Raymond James Fund to meet the 30% threshold.
Good. Any questions on that so far?
Yeah, so tell me again where we're taking that money from to,
From our general fund.
From the general
Our general
fund.
operating fund, yes, sir. The requirement is that if we don't meet one of the thresholds,
Right.
we transfer 25% of our excess in the general fund from the prior year. We had about a $56,000 surplus. I said excess, I mean surplus. We had a $56,000 surplus after we received the CARES Act money. Without the CARES Act money, it would have been more like $850,000. But the CARES Act money helped us, and so we are only going to be required to transfer the $14,000 from our general fund to our rainy day fund at Raymond James.
which is the 25% of 56,000.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Now, do you want to handle these individually or just all at the end?
That's the only transfer we're
That's really the only
requesting.
one that need, okay.
Yes,
So
sir.
then continue on and then we'll make that
Okay.
motion.
One of the next items on the fiscal policy is our compensated absences and risk management. By fiscal policy, we have to carry money that's assigned to cover these expenses. Our compensated absence at 9/30/20 was $2,851,800. That's the total of our vacation, holiday, and comp time that's on the books that we currently have. So if we were to shut the city down at 9/30/20, this is what would be paid out to the employees that they've earned and is due to them. The risk management of $1 million, that is a number that the Finance Committee and the Council assigned to be maintained, that balance to cover any type of emergency or insurance costs that might present itself. So we maintain those balances at this time in our general fund.
So we pass that test.
Yes, we do pass.
Right.
I apologize for this being so small. I'm struggling to see it myself. And we blew it up.
I was gonna ask you, like,
Yeah.
when I first started in this, I could read these, but I'm having
I
trouble
know
now.
it gets worse the further we go down.
12 to 15.5, we need to get to 20.
I think we'll start splitting it on 2 pages and make it really big. Okay.
So, Mr. Burgett, that means that we've got 2.85 million for the absence liability and then $1 million, so it's really just under 4 million, 3.85 million that we're maintaining if you combine those two.
The 2.8 is an actual expense the city will actually incur
Right,
if it was
right,
to close.
right, if it
The
shut
risk
down October
management is a
1.
number that council has imposed upon themselves as having a balance in our general fund to cover any unforeseen risk.
Okay, I now understand, okay.
Okay. The next is, let me get my.
Other needed
brain straight.
transfers.
Yeah, okay, this is referred to other needed transfers. We look at again, we start with the current year's general fund budget, which is 55 million. We subtract out our transfers to the Boards of Education to debt service, and we come back to our $42 million, which is the number that we're working off of. We have a cash balance currently in Iberia and at Bryant Bank of just public funds investment of $11,470,000. We're required to have a 16% cash balance on hand, and that amount is $6,819,000. So we exceed that test by a good margin there. So we're safe there.
And, hey, Robert, that's 0, that's why it's supposed to be 16%, that's what, it formatted currency, but that's why, yours might have changed, but it's 16%.
16%?
I don't know if there's a fish show.
Okay, do y'all, it say, I don't know if y'all can see it, it says, we're required to maintain a 16% balance of our operating general fund.
Right,
We're
which is
holding
this-
that, which is
yeah.
unassigned money.
Right.
Okay. Then, now in our capital fund and our debt service fund, we have some issues here, but they're really not as bad as it looks here, other than capital. Capital, if all our projects come due at one time, you know, we are in trouble on capital, but they're always spaced out. We never get hit with all the bills at once on capital. But we currently have a balance at 9/30 of 2.457 million in our capital projects fund. And we have planned expenses out of that account of 1.6 million. So that leaves a $787,000 balance. When you take the 9/30 balance less the planned expenses, and it gives us $787,000 on hand. Well, the fiscal policy requires us to maintain $750,000, so we do pass. But I do want to point out to y'all, which I have before, but we have always, other till the current year, we have always been able to transfer the last 4 or 5 years money, surplus money out of the general fund to help capital.
To capital, yeah.
Right. In 2016, we transferred $700,000. In 2017, we transferred $500,000. 18 and 19, we transferred $1 million. The mayor came to y'all and asked y'all to make that transfer, to put it in capital, to help fund capital. And that has propped up capital the last few years. Well, the current year, we put 2.2 million in, and we're projecting approximately 2.2 again next year. And we don't have the surplus right now to make a transfer to help capital. So on all the projects and everything that we're doing, we need to keep that in mind, that we need to kind of be, you know, really diligent on going forward with capital projects. But we do meet all the fiscal policy tests at this time. But we also have a lot of expenses coming down the pike with capital projects.
Right.
The debt service fund, we fail on debt service, and I've explained this before, and the reason is we have ample funding in our debt service account. What happens is I make a $6 million bond payment the 1st of September. And so we run these numbers on 9/30. So it looks bad at 9/30. But, so we were below what was required according to fiscal policy. But on the bottom line, you'll also see I put the May 30th, May 31st balance of
12 million.
2021. We're back to $12 million. So we are amply funded in the debt service. It's just a timing issue with us making a bond payment the 1st of September and us running the ratios at the end of September. And it doesn't look good in that regard, but the numbers, the money is there and is available. And just a couple other things. In the past year, you know, we've had some challenges, but the city has never had to dip into any of its reserve money. The economic uncertainty fund has stayed. The mayor has never come to the council, hasn't needed to, because of just the way that the expenses were handled within the departments. So I think that's good to know. And we have not moved any of our basically savings account money that's at Iberia and Bryant Bank. So any questions?
I have a quick question. So, I mean, just going back to the capital reserve funds, it does, and if I'm hearing you wrong, you can please correct me, that you're somewhat issuing a small red flag in terms of our annual propping up of the capital projects from general fund, that we won't be able to do that because of the lack of surplus.
That is correct. We did not transfer at fiscal year in 20, which we have transferred the 5 previous years to a tune of $3.2 million. So, and we did not transfer in 20, and 2021 is yet to be seen.
Okay, thank you.
Now, I will tell you this, and Melody can speak to this better because it was before my time. Of the 2 cents that we receive in sales tax, 50 cents of that used to go to capital, and that was changed prior to me being here.
2007, I think.
2007.
To give a cost of living.
And it went into general fund.
It dropped.
And
Yeah.
now we're funding capital with just a quarter of the 2% instead of 50%. So, you know, as council, y'all can look at restoring that, y'all can look at whatever you need to do. But that is, one of the things that created capital being in a shortfall position by reducing the funding to capital. You said 2007?
It was 2007 as far as before I got here, but I think that it'd been a while since they'd given a COLA, so in order to give a cost of living in the general fund, they split the 2%. At the time, sales tax was just 3%. And one went to the school, the city kept 2%. So they had 50 cents going to capital and the other going to general fund. They apparently took the quarter and took it back to the general fund to give a cost of living. So capital just then has 25 cents of 2%. Because even now with the 4% sales tax, 1% goes to the school, 1% goes to debt service. So the capital still has to live off of a quarter of 2%. But that is one of the reasons why, what Rob was saying, in the years that we had surplus, even with paying bonuses, we asked y'all to move over to capital, because in effect, capital couldn't survive off just a quarter of the 2. So we moved the excess to kind of put back the 50 cents or whatever we used to have.
We ended up funding capital out of both capital and the general fund instead of just the 50 cents that was going to capital.
And ever since we've been moving money to capital, it's only been the quarter. It's been the quarter ever since I've been.
And every year we talk about restructuring that, but we never do. So that's why we rarely pass that test on capital, because of the way it's funded.
Well, we knew we had a lot of stuff coming down the pike, so it's really good that we moved all those that he told you, because then we would really be having to make a transfer out of the general fund to shore that up. But fortunately, the years that we had the surplus, that's why we asked y'all to move it to capital, because we knew we had these projects coming down the road.
Okay.
And one other thing too, I just have a note here that we currently, in our capital project, we have a carryover fund balance of $1.8 million. And in the years, that is probably, at this point in time, probably as low as that I've seen it here. So it is an issue that needs to be looked at and addressed, how we're actually going to fund capital with some of the budget requests that are coming and some of the expenses that we're going to have coming down the road, so.
Okay. So and I'll just make a quick remark about, because I was around when Tony Smith came up with all these ideas, and when we kind of worked on them together, I thought some of them were a little strict, but we've tweaked them over the years a little bit. But I mean, most cities don't do what we're going through right now. I mean, most cities just go through the budget and do the best they can, and at the end of the year, they make adjustments. What we do is at mid-year, we run these tests to make sure we are on track, and if we're not, we make adjustments at that point. So even if we fail something, it just means it's an opportunity for improvement, for us to, to make sure that we are on solid financial footing. But it is interesting to note that the account for economic uncertainty, I mean, it has almost $11.6 million in it. I mean, and we haven't touched it, like Mr. Burgett said. So we're in good position. We certainly hope to be in a better position, now that we're we're getting out of COVID. But I think this is a good exercise to see where we are. So I'll just make that comment. So the only motion that we need to take care of is to move the 14,171 to Iberia.
No, it goes from general fund to the Raymond James.
To Raymond, that's right,
Economic
to Raymond
Uncertainty
James.
Account.
Okay, to Raymond James. Okay, to satisfy that test. Okay, so that's.
And I believe, Mr. Kendrick can answer this, but those are both general fund accounts. I think they just have to approve the transfer. There doesn't
Yeah, it's
need to
just
be
a,
a budget.
it's just a transfer resolution.
Yeah, you should approve the
Okay,
transfer.
so it's just a transfer
It's
of
just a cash account.
14,171. Okay,
All right, I would move to have a transfer made of 14,171 from the general fund to the Raymond James uncertainty account.
Second.
okay. Moved by Mrs. Smith, second by Mr. Harden. All right, any other questions, comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed by the same sign, that's 5-0. Okay, next we'll talk
Before,
about.
before,
Yes.
I mean, because I do hear Robert and Melody both saying that we do need to address this, and we talk about it annually, and I am newer to this process, so what would it take to initiate a conversation in which we would evaluate whether it's time to fund, because all it seems we're playing with money anyway, we're in debt, capital has funds transferred over, so why not try to fund it appropriately? And what process would need to take place, Mr. Chairman?
What it would take would be, we'd have to have the mayor on board with this, but, to recommend it during budget hearings and how we structure next year's budget as to how those are funded. So if we could all work together to come up with that recommendation so that it's more equitably, funded for capital. So, yeah, so that would just come from you as to how to, ways to make it easier. And then the mayor would have to be on board for wanting to handle it that way. But it's a great suggestion. We just have not taken it to the next step to do it. We just say, hey, we need to look at this, but we have not done it.
Yeah, well, and I think I made mention of it last week. I actually set up all of my department head meetings for the budget for the end of July. Because of course I'll present it to you guys at the last meeting in August. So that gives us a lot of time to go through what we need to go through per department. But that will be something that we can certainly discuss when the time comes for that presentation in August.
Yeah, and I mean, is it possible to potentially be even creative, right? If it's not 25 cents, can it be 33 cents? Can it be 40 cents? Can we do something to more fully address capital concerns? Because the projects aren't going to stop, so.
No, and I think the mayor's got a lot of plans for projects, is what.
Absolutely.
I don't have
Infrastructure.
all of them, but they will be presented to me in July. I guarantee it.
Those aren't necessarily
Now,
projects.
his job
as
will
much
be,
as they-
his
That's more
job will be to
equipment.
say no. So
That's more
what,
equipment.
because I mean, if you realize how many requests are coming in, it takes a lot, and you're gonna have to say no, a
Well,
lot.
I will
to
say,
come up.
if I will to say too, because I have worked at several cities, and we are one of the few cities that most cities just fund their capital out of their general fund. So it's good that we have a dedicated source. So that's really good. Like I'm
Yep.
saying, that we have a source of income. Otherwise, you're up and down in capital in your general fund. It's just, but there was, Dr. Jones used to ask me what kept me up at night 5 or 6 years ago, and I was like, capital, just because we knew all these projects that had been signed off on so long ago are just now hitting, and kind of knew this whirlwind. Plus, like you said, there's vehicle needs and that kind of stuff. But that's one of the reasons why on the years that we did have excess with managing the general fund, that we moved the money over at that time. But that was for a while what has kept me up at night, knowing that. So it's, but we are good in the fact that we have a dedicated source, even in the quarter of the 2 cents. And if y'all ever decide to tweak it or look, we just have to probably look at the budget, because we got to see how much the general fund is going to need, and that'll be what everybody will decide in the
Right.
mayor's budget and stuff. But it is kudos that we have a fund dedicated with its own source, because a lot of times, if not, it's just general fund. The sales tax would just stay in the general fund completely, and then you pay capital. So it's good to have it dedicated, whether we need to tweak it. That's something we're going to have to look at going forward. But that's one of the good reasons why we did move some money over. We kind of knew this was coming.
All right, great, good questions. Okay, now did you want to make a comment on the audit, Ms. Salter?
I would just say that we have the draft of the audit that our firm, they were going to come tonight, but they're still waiting on final review from the partner. We don't expect any of the numbers to change, and we just got to finish one part of the MD&A and then their final peer review. So they really say, because it's a draft, they didn't want us to distribute it because it could be subject to change. So I don't know, I guess we'll decide going forward if y'all want them to come back, if the numbers don't change or not. I was just gonna, say kind of to echo what you said, we get really good marks with our bond rating companies because we have this comprehensive fiscal policy. And at another city I went to before, they were doing a bond deal and they didn't have one. And so I will tell you, I pulled heavily from ours and Vestavia's, because we get really high marks for having that. So even on like debt, if we failed that test because of a timing difference, those are your own imposed restrictions. They're not legal
Right.
restrictions outside of that. So the bond rating give us really good kudos for having such a good comprehensive policy. But I just was going to hit a few things. But again, I wanted to give the disclaimer that this is strictly
Draft.
It could change. I know it's kind of hard because you don't have anything to look at. And Robert already talked to you about how we start with the fiscal policy that basically the net income in the general fund for last year, for the year 10/1/19 to 9/30/20 was only $56,000. But we survived the year of the COVID, but that is including the 800-something thousand we got in COVID money. But also that's taking out the bonuses that were paid, about $350 or something. So, you kind of do the math to see where we have been without the COVID money. So we just finished at 56,000, but we didn't take anything out of our reserves. But when you get to capital, when you can see, when you get the final, if it stands, capital is the one that, actually lost $2.2 million. Because again, we had, projects and stuff, again, we weren't able to transfer any money at 9/30/20 like we normally do, to kind of help shore that up. So, but we're still on the positive as far as fund balance, but we did take it down from $6 million fund balance at the beginning of the year to 3.8. So, because we took, when you lose money, that's basically what happens is you've still got the money there, but it takes your equity down. So, it's down. It was down at 9/30/20 to 3.8. So that's the one, like Robert was saying, we need to look at going forward. And then debt service still has a healthy fund balance of 13.9. In the general fund, like we had 29 million in fund balance there. So I just was going to go over that if those numbers stayed. And then I wanted to also, when you get the audit report, and I kind of talked to this one on my class that I teach too, because we actually have the short end of the stick. We have to do accounting here in governmental and fund accounting and a full accrual, where most places it's just a full accrual. So you'll see, when you get the financial statements, you'll see the full accrual, which is where we'll have everything, including our full pension liability and all that. On the fund statements, you only have the current expenses that we pay on pension. So when we start talking about unfunded pension liability, we're current with our pension. It's just that GASB, the Government Accounting Standard Boards, makes us do statements in two ways. One, full accrual, where you put everything, long-term debt and everything on, and then you have your fund statements. Like in the old days when I first started, all we did were fund statements, and you didn't have to put all your long-term debt, your assets, and that kind of things on there. So right now, the first two will be the full accrual, which is a statement of net position and statement of activities, and then you'll have the old fund statements that everybody's used to. But our pension liability was about 44.4 million, so that's the amount they make us put on the balance sheet as the quote pension liability that we're liable for down the road, the unfunded portion. It doesn't mean that we haven't made our current pension obligations. It's just saying that that's, and there's a footnote that'll go back there that explains exactly what that is and how the actuarial assumptions are. But again, that's something you're gonna be paying long term. And then, like Robert was saying, on the fund balance, the 29 million that we had in the general fund, there's different P's on that because you as a council have kind of restricted. There's nothing that's restricted by state or in the general fund. All the fund balances that are restricted by legislation are in the 4 and 5 cent gas tax and those type of things, the special revenue funds. But there's like 3 P's of the general fund. Committed is kind of like, I've heard it say that committed is kind of like you're married, assigned as you're engaged, and unassigned as you're single. So committed, just with the married part, is a little bit harder to get out of. That's 11.7 million, which is what y'all have tied the economic uncertainty fund to. Y'all can undo that. I'm not saying you want to, but that's why it's not restricted, because it's not a state or federal law. It's something that y'all did as council. So you actually said, that's committed. We can't just use that without coming to y'all. And then we've got assigned, which is what Robert said, which is the risk management and the compensated absences, to make sure that we keep a part of the fund balance to pay those. And then the unassigned is 13 million. So that's a pretty healthy fund balance for unassigned. But that's where the assigned comes from. When Mr. Harden asked about the risk management, we don't have something just sitting there for risk management, but we have a part of our equity say that if something happens, we can pay that. And we pay the vacation and all that as we go on during the year, but we keep a part of our fund balance for that. Just if we were to, say, we're never gonna have to pay all your vacation at one day, but we keep a part of that fund balance restricted for the policy. So that makes it more restricted because that's what y'all put on for the fiscal policy, so.
Right.
And that's kind of the highlights of what I had, and then once y'all get the final, if you wanna keep it carried over on there, we can have, if we can get them to come back, or if not, we can give you the final and you'll still have it here. If we're gonna try to carry.
Yeah, let's add it later, I would say.
We just add it later?
Yeah, let's go ahead and accept this. And,
Okay.
Mr. President, we're gonna need more than 45 minutes for the finance tonight. So,
I tried to hurry.
and I know you did, I'm just joking. Okay, okay, so for the audit report, I guess, we'll just accept it. I don't think we need a motion or anything. Do we need, I don't guess we need a motion. No, okay, so we'll
Not
just
exactly.
accept that without objection.
We'll just
Okay.
send it out then with y'all making the Raymond James, and we'll just make a new item if they come back.
Okay.
Okay.
Any questions? Okay. There'll be a test later on Gatsby. On
That
all-
was like as simple as I thought it went fast.
I know.
Government County
General
Standards Board.
count. Exactly. Okay, so we're gonna, so we'll, move on. We've made a motion on that. 190521, a request for consideration of the sale of property at 311 Oxmoor Road. The mayor's asked that we carry this over, so we're gonna carry this over for additional information. 040521, bid opening set for August 16th. For the tree planting, I'd recommend we table this until it occurs, unless you,
Move to table.
okay.
Second.
Okay, moved by Mrs. Smith, and then seconded by Mr. Waltney, right? I believe I heard you. Okay, good. Getting in on the action tonight. Okay, any other questions, comments? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed by the same sign. 5-0, that passes. It's tabled. New business, 010621, authorize the mayor to sign a grant with Culture City Training Program. And as I understand, this is for police and fire, is that right?
That is correct.
Okay.
So, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So about a month ago, I met with Dr. Julian Maha and Uma, I'm going to butcher this name, but Srivastava, in regards to Culture City. This is one of the programs that came out of, or a suggestion that came out of the use of force policy task force that we went through. And this is a sensory inclusive training that deals with people with autism, PTSD, ADHD, Parkinson's disease, things like that. And this group came before, I had a meeting with them, and they essentially what it is they do a training online that's a 30-minute training for all of your public safety officers. So everybody from police, fire, E911, and they have training programs that are set for each one of those groups. If 90% of the group takes the course and then passes the test at the end, then your city is considered sensory inclusive. They give you decals to put on all of your cars so that the people that see the police cars and the fire trucks driving around the city know that we are sensory inclusive. And they also include bags that are inside of each of the vehicles. That includes fire trucks, police cars, that include several different kits or tools that are inside the bag, from noise canceling headphones to fidget spinners to all sorts of things that help with those sensory inclusive issues. And the good news is that we have the benefit of people within the city that have taken it upon themselves to fund this completely for us. The training normally you have a $200 trainer fee, but then you also have $2,500 worth of training, and then another $2,500 for sensory bags and decals, which the total would have been around a little over $5,000, or close to $5,200. And that is essentially being waived for the city. So I don't
We'd like
know
that.
from Mr. Kendrick's perspective whether or not this is, it says on the agenda, it says a grant, but I don't know if it's accepting a grant or if it's just authorizing me to sign the contract with no fee.
Just ask me, do we have a contract?
Okay, I do have a contract that I can send to you, but I didn't know if it.
I would say we're approving the contract.
Okay,
If the contract provides that fees are waived.
it does.
Then,
It does.
yeah.
Okay,
Authorize the mayor to sign the contract.
okay.
Yeah, my only question, Mayor, was, will this help on our insurance rates?
That's a
future?
question I don't know the answer to,
Okay.
but I can find that out for you. And then every year to conduct the training, because this is an annual training, every year for, I guess, continued education, it's only $250 a year to keep this up. And then, of course, if we have to buy replacement bags or anything like that, if something gets taken or lost, damaged, each one of those bags is $31 a piece. So you're not looking at a great cost except for upfront, and again, we've gotten that covered, so.
Well, it sounds exciting.
Yeah.
I think that's great.
And Chief Ross and Chief Hill are both back here, and I had meetings with both of them directly after I had the meeting with Culture City, and they are both absolutely on board with this. And as soon as we get this done, then they'll contact their teams, and we'll start the trainings. So hopefully by the end of summer, beginning of fall, we'll be ready to go.
Okay. Any questions for the mayor or for chiefs? All right.
Thank you.
I would move to approve the contract.
Authorize the mayor to
Approve the
sign.
mayor to sign the contract,
Okay.
yes.
Moved by Mrs. Smith,
Second.
second by Mr. Harden. No cost for this year. That's great. Any questions, comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed by the same sign. 5-0. That passes. Thank you. 020621, consideration to surplus, obsolete, and equipment no longer needed for general municipal purposes from the library, and we also have from police and fire. There's a long list. It went out. If there are any questions, Ms. Fout asked if she didn't have to be here tonight, and I told her she did not have to be here tonight, or she would have really enjoyed our discussion earlier. Was there, I didn't see any police, was there any police surplus? Well, it's.
Fire. Yeah, it's fire.
Oh, okay, just fire, that's right, and the library. Any
But I-
questions?
But
You can.
I do have, the closet back there that the mayor wanted us to try to clean out. I have a list of just a few little things that I didn't take inventory of, that I can send to y'all, Mr. Kendrick. It's just some broken HP monitors, and some computer stuff, and a couple of pictures and a vase. That I
Okay.
can send to you, if I could just piggyback off that, so we get that ring cleaned out. It's
Sure.
like 5 or 6 minutes.
Okay,
So if y'all could just include that in
I have no
in your
objection,
motion.
we'll,
We
this will be,
got most of the phones and stuff out, the phones and the computer, but we couldn't get in there good until that was out to send the
okay,
rest of it.
okay, got it, okay.
But I'll send you
Any
that.
questions? Got Chief Hill here. It's a lot of stuff from the library, I know, because they haven't had,
Yeah, she said too, is all obsolete, they couldn't.
yeah, all obsolete. We got some good Tandy 2000s.
1990s.
They use the 5 1/4 floppy. Yeah, I know, so we know what generation you're in. Okay. That's right. Okay, any questions? Okay, then I'd look for a motion to declare those surplus equipment.
Chief was about to say something, that's why I was waiting.
I thought you were gonna ask me about the list,
Yeah,
so
yeah, I saw him coming up, and I thought he was about to say
Well,
something.
well,
That's
we're-
why.
we're-
it's a long list, but.
If there are no questions, let's move on.
I would make a motion to approve surplusing the items on the list and including the items that were added to the list by Miss Melody.
Second.
All right, second by Mr. Gwaltney, moved by Mrs. Smith. Okay. Any other questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed by the same sign. 5-0. That'll be an ordinance that we deal with next week, so if there are any questions, they'll reach out to you, Chief. How about that?
Sounds good.
Okay, so you just stay right there. Moving on, 030621, request to consider funding deputy chief position, coming to us from you and the mayor and Mr. Burgett and everybody else here. So give us a report on this and we'll work through this together.
Okay. All right, first off, let me apologize for apparently not following the proper procedure. I thought I had, but apparently I had not. Secondly, let me say we are not adding personnel. So there's no additional personnel, we just restructured the office. So
Okay, and
we're not-
let
we're not
me,
going from
okay,
76
and before you
personnel
go
to
on, let me
77.
explain, so what we want, the ideal situation to be is that we have an entire night dedicated to, I mean, it's actually, it's in our budget, it's under tab 1, so it's, no, it's, let's see, tab 1, payroll worksheet. So we go through each department and we look at, okay, what positions are gonna change during the fiscal year? And what do you see as, if one position, it is not filled, what does that look like? So you come to us before anything, so that we're prepared for the entire fiscal year as to what your requested positions are within your department. Okay, so I just wanna, when you say that, and so we really didn't go exactly by that, I guess, but
Right,
I
so
totally understand.
We did put the money in promotions, but I'll now find out that's not the appropriate place to put it. So we did budget for it. We just didn't announce it,
Okay.
I guess, in the right fashion. But we did fund it.
Not
Right,
in,
we-
right, not in
so
the right
it's
spot.
not- We're not asking for more money because we did fund it, even though it was in the wrong place. So we did put the money in the budget. And half of the salary for the deputy chief position comes out of 911 and half comes out of the fire department budget. And we did that because that's the way it was under Chief Parker, or because we were replacing Chief Parker, he was the 911 director. So really, we just got back to where we were. I reached out to the personnel board and said, hey, do we need to create a new position? And they said, no, you have this position on the books. And I said, okay, which is another reason I didn't put it in the budget in that fashion, because we had it on the books an hour. So I said, oh, okay. So I just need to put it on our promotions. That's my train of thought, which, again, clearly understand is not the correct method. But so that's the way we did it. And when I called the personnel board, I asked for a certification list. They sent me a list. It had 3 names on it, and Broadhead was the obvious choice. So I consulted with the mayor. We made the promotion when I thought we were all on the same page, but apparently I was mistaken.
And I mean, and granted, I mean, a lot of us have been doing this a long time. We're all kind of, you're relatively new as chief. And I mean, a lot of this, we're kind of, and mayor, you just got elected. So, I mean, all this is kind of, we're working through this together. And so all I ask is that we just, over communicate. And so if there are positions you're looking for in next year's budget, let's just make sure that we discuss it so that we know, what your vision is for the department. And I think it's helpful because during that night, I think we learned so much about here's our current structure, and you've got like we used to see a nice chart to say here's everything, and here are the reports, here are the lieutenants, here battalion chief, all that is easy. I'm a visual person, so to kind of see that, and then what your vision is transitioning into that fiscal year is helpful, I think, to all of us. So we're learning about this. So I mean, we're learning together. So I appreciate you coming up, and that's the first thing you said is, you didn't know. So I mean, that's you didn't do it intentionally, and so the request really, and I know that we have this position. I mean, I know that position is there, but it's really not in our budget. So you're really requesting the position be listed in our budget and filled. Is that
Correct.
right? Okay.
Going forward from this point forward, yes.
Going forward until the end of the fiscal year. So not waiting until the new budget year, but you're talking about handling it now for the remaining 4 months of the fiscal year.
Correct.
Okay. And Mr. Burgett, did he leave?
No, he's there.
Oh, there you are. Okay. Oh, I couldn't. Sorry. You were hiding behind the mayor, weren't you? Okay. So we're talking about something like what, $1,400 or something coming from each fund.
For the remainder of the year, about $1,665, and it'll be split between
$1,665 coming out of E911 and then
general fund.
in the general fund. Okay, so that's your request, is that correct?
Right, and we're not really, I don't know if I'm saying this correctly, we're not asking for money, we just put it in the wrong place, if that's, so. We're not asking for additional funding, I don't think.
Well,
Or are we asking to reallocate the money?
well, see, that's how you have to you have to look at it, like, when you come into the fiscal year, here's our structure. And when you came into the fiscal year, there was not a person that was filling the deputy fire chief position.
I got you.
And
Okay.
so there's like,
We
it's
don't
like a
have money
domino
there.
effect. When you now fill that position, there's gonna be backfill all the way through. So what we're just trying to understand is that what is the effect and what do we need to approve now so that you don't have to come back and say, oh, well, now I have a firefighter position that I need to fill or something.
Well, there's no backfilling. We're just reapportioning the office staff. We're not backfilling, we're not adding a position. So we're not going from 76 fire personnel to 77. We're just upgrading the fire marshal position to the deputy chief.
So you're keeping the same number of positions.
Same number of positions.
You're just requesting that position be in our budget and properly funded.
Correct. We're
Okay.
not adding any staff or any more firefighters or any more personnel.
Changing a title, basically.
Just changing the title and paying them the difference between fire marshal pay and deputy chief pay. That's why
Okay.
it's such a small amount at this point.
Okay.
So the correct motion then would be to expend $1,665 each out of the E911 and fire department budget to cover the cost difference.
I don't think it's each, I think it's
total.
total, it's split. The 1665 is the total.
800, whatever that-
Split
whatever
between
that
the two.
is.
Split evenly between those
Yeah,
two.
okay, that's where I wasn't sure. Okay, so yes, so, $1,665 split between the E911 and, fire department budget to cover the cost difference between the two positions.
Second.
Okay. Moved by Mrs. Smith, second by Mr. Allemine. Any questions? I hope I didn't make it more complex than it was, but.
No, I
so-
apologize for
No,
not
I
following the proper
appreciate,
procedure.
I appreciate the partnership. I really do. Okay, that's been properly motioned, seconded. Any other questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed by the same sign. That is 5-0. We're on the home stretch here.
Mr. Jones?
Yes, sir. Are you gonna like mess all of this up?
Yeah.
Okay, I was afraid of
I
that.
don't understand that I would have to do anything for the personnel board because there's already positions, so typically there's no
I think it's
resolution.
just a vote, we don't need a resolution because.
There's no
we have-
budget transfer,
Right.
so there's no resolution that would be required, as I understand.
I think
Okay,
that's probably correct. At least with regard to the position.
Or the funding.
Or if you're fine with the funding,
I'm fine with the funding.
It's just a vote,
I
it's
just
just a
thought
vote,
that we
that's all.
needed to specify the structure within our budget.
Well, you will do that when you approve the next budget, but do you want a budget resolution? I mean, I'm just trying to make sure I give you what you want. It's not required by the personnel board. There's no new money. I don't know what the resolution would be, other than what you tell me you want. So that's why I'm asking the question.
My personal opinion too would be just be a vote, and then we know that you voted for it, and so when, we hadn't finished the budget, payroll budget for next year, but now.
I don't think we need a resolution. I think we need
need a
to
vote.
vote
Are you
on
gonna have
it.
funded fire marshal now?
Yeah.
You're not gonna have fire
I was
marshal
just
at
trying to
all?
make
He's
sure.
gonna do
you
both.
need some-
In a lot of departments, they do both. So like, that's
Yeah.
Navy and other
Okay.
departments, the fire marshal is the.
I think you just have a vote, and
Deputy
then we
chief.
know that y'all funded the position back, and we'll put it as that title in next year's budget.
Yep.
We just have a vote out there next week.
Perfect.
Okay.
Okay. Oh, wonderful. Thank you, chief. Okay. Do we vote on that?
No, we have not.
Okay.
Oh, I thought it was back here.
You did approve it.
We did.
Voted on it, yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
I put 5-0 on
As
that.
I asked-
Pay attention, Mr. Harden. I'm just kidding. 5-0, that passes. Okay, 040621, request to consider retro pay for increased property taxes for the estate of Buddy Wade. So we have that. For 2018, it was 125, is that right? And then for 2019, 4,080, is that right? So the total amount would, just give us the total amount that was
It's
the back.
125 for 18, $4,081 for 19, and that will be coming out of 0111 contractual services. It's a total of $4,206. And that is for the prior 2 years. I believe I sent out the tax records where that shows where they had paid that money.
Yep. So
What
we,
is the amount?
For 2018, it's $125, and for 2019, it's $4,081.
I assume this is being treated as a claim.
I'm sorry?
I assume this is being treated as a claim by the estate, asking the city to pay it.
It-
Because we're not contractually obligated.
Correct. It is a request basically on the goodwill of the city, because from what I understand,
It's a
even though,
claim.
it's a claim.
There's no
Okay.
goodwill. It's just-
because there was, the contract didn't specify it, but it was my understanding that the city had an agreement to pay what the property taxes were for the property.
That
This
was
was
the
before my
intent,
time, so.
Yes, but you have to treat it as a claim to be able to pay money for a
Okay.
contract that doesn't exist. So that's what it will be as a claim.
Okay. But I think the spirit of the original contract was that we would cover
Correct.
the ad valorem taxes on that. Well, no, we voted on the current year. And so what we're doing, this,
Going forward.
and
It's
this-
amended
yeah,
going
we
forward.
voted on the going forward. This is the going back to, yeah.
This is to catch up with what they've already paid 2 years back.
Correct. Okay, so any questions on that? Okay, so you said 4,206 would be the total coming out of contractual services, 0111-520400?
Yes, sir.
All right, I would make the motion to.
0111
Make that.
520400.
Okay, moved by Mrs. Smith,
Second.
second by Mr. Harden. Y'all have been incredibly patient with me tonight, so thank you.
This is for 2018 and
2018 and 2019,
Okay.
fiscal year end. Yes, sir.
Any questions? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed by the same sign, 5-0. That passes. Okay, last item. 050621, request to consider releasing funds held in escrow for environmental testing for former Jiffy Lube property. Mr. Burgett.
Yes, sir, I received a request from an attorney, Mr. Glore, Terry Glore, about requesting the refund of escrow that was held by the city of Homewood since 2003. Melody and I have done some research on it. We've looked at some expenses in the past, and this was transferred out of the escrow account. Was it 2013, Melody? In 2000, the remaining balance was transferred out of the escrow account when we received the money for the Yuppie Puppy escrow fund. So they currently have a balance, but they're requesting a refund for, and where did my note go? It's 15,000.
627.50.
There we go, 15, yes, sir, 15,627.50. That is the balance. There were two expenses paid out of that account, and they were supposed to have claimed this in 2008, but they're just now coming around to the city to ask for this. And we have looked at the records. It was received. There were expenses paid out, and that is very close to the, not to the penny, but very close, within a few dollars, to the balance that we came up with, of 15,627.50. And this would come out of the general fund other expenses account line item.
Okay, general fund, other expenses.
Yes, sir.
But
Now-
we do have to amend the budget for this one, to carry over fund balance.
Yes, that is correct. And I did include some information there about requesting that we amend the budget from carryover fund balance to the other expenses. There's no money in that line item.
It's like 0109.
All right.
109, 300. Is it 300 or 301?
The budget amendment will become from 0109-499-301 carryover fund balance,
Say that again.
0109-499-301,
What's the name of that account?
and it would
Fund balance.
go to
That's carryover.
0111 575000, other expenses.
Okay,
And this is their money, that they're just asking for back
correct.
13 years later.
A
Well, we
refund.
ended up, we transferred it out of Fund 13, environmental escrow, because we got another check, remember, Mr. Kendrick, for Yeti
100,000.
Puppy or something, 100,000? So when we got the other one, we thought we were through with that, and it all preceded us. So we moved it to the general fund, so, and it went into carrier fund balance and our, in a surplus, or, you know, in that line item, so now we gotta pay all that, because we moved it out of Fund 13. Got it. All right, well,
Do you
I
need
would
me to make a
move,
motion?
I would have moved that expenditure, move to approve that expenditure.
Second by Mr. Gwaltney. All right, moved by Mrs. Smith, second by Mr. Gwaltney. Okay. I haven't heard about Jiffy Lube since '03, and a million times since then.
That's what I said.
Okay.
Robert brought it to me, I was like, I thought that was all done.
All in favor say aye.
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 All opposed, by the same sign. That's 5-0. Wow. I did not anticipate us taking this long. I apologize. I did not budget time properly, but with that, we're adjourned.